All right, Adam Brandon from Freedom Works. He's the Vice President of Communications. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. You heard Kathy Harrell on and wanted to speak on behalf of Issue 2, Senate Bill 5.
Sure.
Why is this needed? Why is this so passionate? Why do you feel so passionately about it?
Well, because I'm taking a 30,000-foot approach to this. And there's a couple numbers that always strike me when it comes to the state of Ohio. And these are the ones you probably heard of, 600,000 jobs lost since 2000. But there's another number that I heard from Boston Consulting Group recently, and they said due to higher energy prices, in the next 5 years, 3 million manufacturing jobs are coming back to the United States. And the problem for me is looking at the state right now, how many of those jobs are going to Ohio versus how many of those jobs are going to Texas? So to me, it's all about creating the environment that we can start chipping away at those 600,000 jobs and maybe add another 600,000 on top of it.
Well, what does that have to do with the issue too with the public sector unions? I mean, if we got all those jobs coming back, I mean, we'd have a bunch of money. It wouldn't be the issue.
Problem, we got to go get those jobs, and the problem is when an employer looks at where they're going to be locating, if local taxes are going to be too high, they're just looking to where they can make, where it's going to be cheapest to create that job. And so
I see. So if you can cut costs at the different cities and counties and state, you're in better shape.
It's going to create some flexibility for local communities to do what they need to do to get those jobs. Rather than spending all their time trying to figure out, how they're going to meet the union benefits in the balance of the public and private sector, let's give each one of those communities the flexibility it needs. I mean, this doesn't do away with collective bargaining. It just strengthens the local government and the people we elect. It just strengthens their ability to go in and try and get the right deal that's going to get the equipment to the firefighters, but also it's going to make sure that this local township can pay for it. That creates the right business environment.
Do you think, Donnie, the caller I just had on, do you think he was reasonable? Do you think that's the right way to say, let's make sure people have equipment, safety equipment, whatever, but let's address the automatic, protecting a worker that may be a bad worker and step increase in raises and salaries and benefits?
I do agree, but government needs to set priorities. And I tell you what, making sure that he has the right equipment, that's a top priority. I'm going to put that in front of, painting a local, school, parks bench or something like that.
I'd put that in front of most things, yeah.
Yeah, right. But we need these folks to be able to set those priorities. Now, when I look at issue 2, basically it's just kicking a lot of that responsibility back to the local people we elect. It's not taking any powers away.
If this fails, if issue 2 fails, do you think they'll nickel and dime it and try to piecemeal it next time around? Say, we'll try after this little piece, we'll try that piece?
Well, I sure hope so, because I come back to that 600,000 jobs number. Ohio's got to do something. And if anything, I applaud the governor for being bold as can be on these issues, balancing the budget without raising taxes. But, if the local guys have gotten used to going to the state to get a bailout, and the governor's sending a clear message, we're out of money up here.
Are there states out there that do not look at emergency services and government workers in particular the same way, that they have a different structure? From what I've been told, my little bits of research, that not everybody does it this way, that there is no collective bargaining and binding arbitration for a lot of states. Are they losing police and firefighters by a huge margin? Or
at the bottom line, population and growth is what drives these decisions. I mean, if you're going to have a growing city, you're going to have a growing fire department. If you're going to have a shrinking state and a shrinking city, eventually you're going to have a shrinking fire department. I am all for economic growth to solve a lot of these problems, and that's why I keep coming back to not just issue 2, but issue 3. These are both going at the heart of some of these big issues.
Well, now, what I hear is in the past they say, listen, prior to 19, and I can't remember the exact year, 84, I think it was, where they didn't have 83, okay, that they didn't have collective bargaining and binding arbitration for this, that there were a lot of officers that were lost, there were strikes, they were putting their life on the line unnecessarily because they didn't have the equipment, and a lot of problems. Well, it's my understanding these things do not exist in other states. So are they going through every day right now what Ohio went through prior to 83? Or are there other states that say, hey, we have a better way forward? I mean, if they do, maybe that's the answer. We look at what somebody else is doing and saying, hey, here's a way to get them the equipment, but also to be reasonable about salaries and certainly benefits.
Well, every index I've ever looked at, public sector employees in the state of Ohio, they do pretty good compared to the private sector in the state. It is out of balance, and I believe what you're looking at, if you go back to the early 1980s, that was kind of the epic of union strength in the state of Ohio, the steel workers, the auto workers. And whether it's public or private sector union, they tend to work and move together. Well, the private sector unions have kind of fallen away, but they've left in that vacuum all these huge benefits left over for the private or the public sector unions. And I believe that's what Issue 2 is going to do, is kind of start to rebalance that. And once again, no one's collective bargaining is getting taken away. It's just empowering the local communities, the people we elect at the township and the city council, to kind of set the priorities in spending.
My prediction is, Adam, that it fails by 57%. That's my prediction. 57 is the magic number. And like I said, I have supported, the major parts of it that would do away with collective bargaining and binding arbitration for salaries and benefits. I had a question about whether or not they would be able to communicate as a firefighter or police officer with their local officials. I thought that was ridiculous, and certainly I want them to have the equipment they want, but I still think it's going to fail.
Ohio didn't get into its problems overnight, and it's going to take a little while to straighten, to get things back in balance. But even if this ultimately is not successful, which I'm still optimistic that the base is pretty energized to get out there and vote for Issues 2 and Issues 3. Even if this is just the first start, I'll take that, because it's going to be a long road, but I think we're finally back on it in the state of Ohio.
All right, 1 week from today, we're out there.
All right.
Adam Brandon from Freedom Works. He's the Vice President of Communications. Appreciate you joining me. Also got Issue 1 and Issue 3. I'll give you a quick rundown of those and more of your calls about Issue 2 next. 700 WLW. Should a boy be able to join the Girl Scouts? How about a girl the Boy Scouts? What if a boy wants to be a girl, dresses like a girl? Should he be able to join the Girl Scouts? That's a question I have on my blog at 700WLW.com. I would love to get your opinion on it. I think we're going to discuss it a little bit tomorrow. And also, if you go to 700WLW.com, you got to see the video of the big, huge python with a fat belly of deer. It's pretty wild. All right, get some quick calls here on Issue 2. Rick Trenton, you're on 700WLW.
Yeah.
You voting yes or no on Issue 2? Have you made up your mind?
I'm going to vote yes.
What is your reason for that?
Well, let me just tell you what happened one day. I was talking to two firefighters, and I asked them, well, obviously for a long time there's been cuts in number of firefighters, police, other government workers. But I asked these two guys, I said, since there have been cuts in the number of firefighters, have you had any issues with safety? And they had to say no, they didn't. They mentioned a piece of equipment that they would like to have updated, but that was about it. And then they changed the conversation to the teachers. Because, Doc, this is not about safety. This is about their paychecks. Clear and simple. And not wanting to pay more for their benefits and their health care, their retirement and their health care.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I see it. It's clear cut and dry.
Well, let me ask you this, Rick. If your company today came to you and said, listen, we want you to pay more for your health care, we're going to just suddenly charge you more, and you're going to make less money, whatever, would you be happy about that?
I wouldn't be happy about it, but I just have to accept it and suck it up.
Well, and that's the point. Of course, some of them are concerned about what they make. I would think most of them don't want to make less, don't want to have to pay more. Of course, that's what it is. That's a huge portion of it. I could certainly understand that. If my company today comes, which, you know what, they did last week. They did, was it last week, the week before? Hey, guess what? You got to meet with us about your health benefits next year. We're changing the system again this year. And the change is it's going to cost you a lot more. And that's what they told us last year and the year before and the year before and the year before. We're changing, and it's going to cost you more. Of course I don't want to pay more. I don't want anybody to have to pay more. It's not fun. That is definitely part of it. But we have to be able to bring the private sector and the public sector into alignment. How do we do that? How do we say, police and firefighters, you are different than teachers because you risk your lives. So you deserve hazard pay. If you're putting your life on the line, and they truly are, you got to get paid well for that. How well? I don't know. We can decide. But well. Teachers, you have your own unique circumstances there. But we can't put you together with the cops and firefighters. Sorry. That's the first thing. Then second of all, how do we bring what you do in line with the private sector? Because we all pay into the public sector in order to provide these services. So the frustration by people in the private sector is, guess what? I haven't had a raise in 5 years because the economy's been bad, whatever. How come there's automatic raises going to teachers? That's the issue. How do other states do it? Not hearing a lot about that. It's been a lot of misinformation, a lot of bogus campaign ads for issue 2. Scaring people that police and firefighters are not going to show up is not the way to do it. Sorry. And the manipulation of we were willing to sit down, whatever, after the fact. Sorry, guess what? When the governor threw that out there, we'll sit down and Niehaus and whatever afterwards, that was marketing because they knew it was looking bad for him during the campaign. Sorry. They knew. That was the politics. More of your calls on issue 2 next, 700 WL. How about issue 3 and issue 1? Issue 3 is the amendment to the Ohio Constitution that would ban the federal government from imposing on the citizens of the state of Ohio a mandate that they buy health insurance. It's the anti-Obamacare. Do you like that one? I will vote absolutely on issue 3. I am in full support of that. What about issue 1? Allowing judges to serve longer. As it is now, I'm going from memory here, it's just about 70, a little over 70. Now, some judges, if issue 1 were to pass, would be allowed to serve until they're 80? Really? Move on. You're 80. Retire. No, allow some of the younger people, those people who are 70, to move up the ladder a little bit. I'm serious. Move on. I recognize seniors bring a ton of experience to the table. Life experience that we often do not take advantage of, and we ship them off to nursing homes, and that is crazy. But judges serving till they're 80? No, I'm sorry. 70, early 70s, nice round number. Just move on. I can't support issue 1. We'll get your thoughts on those, and many more people want to comment on issue 2. So we'll get a quick news break in, come back and open up the phone lines for you on 700 WLW, the home of the best Bengals.
This is a special podcast presentation from 700WLW.com. This is Doc Thompson On Demand.
Doc Thompson on the big one, 700 WLW. Money shot coming up in just a couple of minutes. Your shot at $1,000 on the way. All right, we're going to get back to the phone calls about issue 1, 2, and 3, but I'm going to run down issues 1, 2, and 3 real quick here for you. And also issue 48. Well, it gets pretty confusing. All right, first of all, you have issue 1. Issue 1 has to do with judges in the state. Ohio Judicial Office Age Amendment. This would be an amendment to the state's constitution that would allow the raising of the age of those occupying judicial office from 70 to 76. Problem is, some of the people that are there, depending upon how the whole thing falls, could serve almost until they're 80. So I understand it that it would be an elected thing. So you would serve beyond that until the term was up. But even 76, is that a good age to be serving as a judge? Does it matter? I'll bet you there's some people that are plenty capable of serving when they're 86. Maybe some that when they're 66 shouldn't be. So do you support that? Should the age be raised that judges can serve in Ohio? If you want it to be raised, then you vote yes on issue 1. If you do not want it raised, then you vote no. That one's pretty simple. No, I don't like them serving that late. I think in general it's probably not a good thing. It's time for you to retire. We can use you other places. Let's open it up, allow some younger people to move up the ladder. But I don't like there being the idea of there being a limit at all. Why should there be a limit at all? If people want to elect somebody older than that, let them elect somebody. Put the power in the voters' hands. If they're appointed by somebody, well, guess what? The person who appointed you, I vote for. Shouldn't we be able to say, hey, we want this guy to serve even though he's 117? Yeah, I think so. So now raising the age, I think they need to readjust it across the board and just say we're not going to have an age limit if people want it. So if you wanted the age raised, the ability to somebody to serve, vote yes on issue 1. Issue 2, you understand that. If you like Senate Bill 5, if you like the changes with binding arbitration in that, then you would vote yes on it. If you do not, then you vote no on it. So the people in the unions, for example, they're primarily voting no on it. That's issue 2. Issue 3 is the amendment to the Ohio Constitution with regard to the federal health care mandate. If you do not want the federal government to be able to tell Ohio that you must, or Ohioans, purchase health care, if you want the amendment that says they cannot do that, then you vote yes on issue 3. If you like Obamacare and you don't want that amendment to the Ohio Constitution, then you vote no. The only one that's kind of upside down is in the city of Cincinnati, and that is issue 48. It's kind of a flip-flop for the trolley car.
Be the 20th nationwide caller now to 1-877-565-WINS to score $1,000 in Doc's Money Shot. 1-877-565-WINS on 700 WLW, the big one.
Issue 48 in the city of Cincinnati. If you want the trolley car stopped, then you vote no. If you want the trolley car to continue, then you vote yes. That's how there's a flip-flop. If you want it to continue, you vote yes. If you want it stopped, you vote no. That one gets kind of tricky. But again, it's just people in the city of Cincinnati, and it should be something that's really regional, definitely in the county, because we all end up paying for it. All right, let's go back to the phones. People want to comment on issue 2 primarily, but we got a lot of people standing by. Let's go to John in Dayton. You're on the big one.
Hey, yeah, a couple of points, Doc, and I'm for issue 2, as far as the firefighters are concerned, the scare tactics with there not being equipment, it is actually in the bill. They actually made it a special provision in the bill that says that they're protected for equipment and that sort of thing.
That they could negotiate for equipment. That was a change that was made, yeah.
Yeah, it's under terms and conditions of what it is that they can negotiate for. So that scare tactic is it's debunked. It's been debunked, yet they still run ads for it. Secondly, as far as teachers are concerned, their pay salaries, it doesn't really affect their salaries. What it is it talks about merits. It ends that last in, first fired scenario, and then it stops that just automatic pay raises just because you've automatically been there X amount of years type of thing, and it's more rewards good teachers.
You know what I really hate, and what's disingenuous is the groups like Code or somebody that's siding up with the firefighters. You're right, solidarity. We're standing with you. Wait a minute, you sit in an office and you shuffle paper. Not that you don't do a job that we need at times, but there's a big difference between that and running into a burning building.
Well, both sides, I think, publicly have been hypocritical, and that's been damaging really to both sides and confusing to the voter. One other thing is, you asked how it's going in other states. In Wisconsin, it's going great. They've so far, just in health care benefits alone, for the teachers, just as for the schools, they've saved $72 million since they passed their levy. Now, we've been spending millions of dollars on referendum on this. Meanwhile, we could have been that much further ahead of the game. The other thing is this. 15,700 plus faculty and staff members in the state of Ohio are currently collecting over $740 million in pension benefits, okay? A lot of them are still working in the same jobs that they have, or that they had, that they're collecting pensions for. So they're double dipping, making salaries of around $200,000 plus.
Well, and there's the key. When I said that, the double dipping actually makes sense for the taxpayers on the backside, where you say, okay, we got people with all this experience. They're making less money than they would have if they had just stayed on. So that makes sense. But how is it you're able to make all that money and retire, to have that amount of money as a benefit at such a young age? That's the problem with the double dipping. Which brings us back to the pensions. I saw a statistic in California that firefighters in California, I think it's just firefighters, I don't think it's cops, that it takes 30 of them to pay the pension of one firefighter that is retired. That is unsustainable in a big way. Now, if you are the average union worker, cop, firefighter, teacher, clerical, whatever, and you're saying, Doc, yeah, I understand what you're saying, and that's a problem, but what about those management types? You are absolutely right. The highest paid people in any state, it's going to be those people who work in education. And I'm not talking about you teachers at the public schools. I'm talking about people who work in colleges, those union or those college professors, the college presidents. They get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. They get bonuses of $78,000 to $150,000 plus housing and all this other stuff. That's something we have to look at. And how many principals and administrators do you have in your schools there? Yeah, I understand if you're a teacher, you're a cop, and you're saying, hey, what about my boss, the guy who may not be a union member? You're right. That's a serious issue, too. Back to the phones in Mason. Sharon, you're next on the big one.
Hey, Doc, how you doing?
What's up?
Hey, I just wanted to go over a couple things. Number one, I love my firefighters, I love my police, and I love my military.
You just like seeing them on those calendars, in their uniform with their hose, right? It's,
Doc, you weren't supposed
the
to
handcuffs.
tell anybody.
I understand how the ladies like the firefighters and cops, and there's a reason, because they're tough guys. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, I've seen some not so tough guys either, but getting back to the issue,
yes, ma'am.
They chose that profession knowing the danger. And God bless them for it. God bless them for that, and I love them for that. But, look at our military. I mean, when they come home, they're not getting a lot of these benefits and perks that the police and firemen do. And their families suffer. And, but I don't hear them complaining much about that. And I just want everybody to know that a lot of these firemen, like I work behind a fire department, and I see these guys out there washing their cars and, playing football, and I understand they got to be there. But, then they'll go to another job. And at what cost do we have to, I've made over 4,000 phone calls on issue 2. And everybody that I talk to, especially the seniors, they are being duped by this group of people that we have always been told to trust and respect. Well, they're not going to come to my house. We're not going to have firemen, even if I have a fire, And now the big thing is, well, they're going to cut our pension. What? I said, you can trust, but verify the fact that, basically what Issue 2 does is it gives us control. If the taxpayers have a right to have a say in the final contract before our community is forced to pay it. And then if we don't like that contract, guess what? We can go to a referendum.
You know what I wonder, Sharon? I wonder if, anybody that really looked at it over the years had to realize we were kind of on that unsustainable path, that this is going to catch up with us. Was this a situation where a bunch of politicians years ago said, we will go ahead and promise them, big, huge benefits because, they've risked their lives as firefighters and cops, maybe pay them a little bit less on the, as a salary, but we'll promise you that because they knew they wouldn't be around? Or do you think they really thought they were doing something good?
I think that it was basically a forced thing. I think that what happened in the beginning was, this collective bargaining. It was to determine their wages, hours, terms of employment, that type of thing. But as the years go by, they have.
Are you on a merry-go-round? Is that?
Sorry, that was my phone going off. The government employee unions have expanded the definition to include a whole list of perks and fringe benefits that the taxpayers can just no longer afford.
Hey, before I let you go, Sharon, I'm sorry, real quick, issue 1. you voting yes on issue 1 that would say, yeah, you can be any age or up to 76 and be a judge?
I'm voting no on that one, and I'll tell you another reason. There's some other stipulations in that bill that
there's a couple other things.
Yeah, that concern me. Yeah.
All right. What about issue 3?
Oh, definitely yes on issue 3. Definitely yes on issue 3. Yeah. I don't want to be mandated to buy something I don't want to buy.
All right. Very good. I appreciate your call. Thank you so much, Sharon. Have a good day. Very, very interesting. So, what should a cop and firefighter make? That's really difficult to say because markets change, cost of living is different in different cities and communities, all across the country, but even here in the tri-state. What should somebody make if they risk their lives? Well, we hear that a lot, but that really is true. When you go to work today, is there a possibility you're going to get killed? No, not for me. It was a cushy job. What about you? Most of us know. Construction trades, yeah, you could see some danger there. Still not as high as a firefighter or a police officer. So what should they make? I think you got to take care of them, certainly. For that job, and it would, my belief is you pay people based on their merit, first of all. So everybody would be paid differently. If Pete is able to do the job of many and he's really dedicated, whatever, he's going to make more than John, who's a bit of a slacker. But I would say off the top of my head, and this is just throwing a number out there, $70,000? Not with the huge golden parachute retirement and all that, but as a base salary. Again, it adjusts. I use that number based on the fact that most Americans, the average is low 40s, $1,000 a year. If we use that as a standard wage for people, that's not a household, that's an individual income. 70? Not quite double. Maybe an opportunity to make more if you're really sharp, something like that. Would you be willing to pay police and firefighters, maybe even teachers, more money that you just say, okay, your salary is going to go up because we want to restructure things, that you're going to make more, but you're not going to get those benefits? Because that's the thing. It's the retirement that kills any community. It's those huge benefits you have to pay at the end. Would you be willing to go along with something like that? Take some more of your calls next. 700 WLW. Doc Thompson on 700 WLW, your storm tracker forecast for meteorologist Frank Marzullo. Today, sunshine, beautiful, high around 62. Partly cloudy tonight, overnight low 38. And you got more sunshine on the way tomorrow with a high near 65. Beautiful couple of days in the tri-state. 49 now at 700 WLW. Back to the calls. Got Bob wants to comment on issue 2. Bob, how are you going to vote?
Hey, Doc, I'm going to vote no on 2, and on 2. I used to be an Ask Me employee. For 20 years, I worked in the private sector and retired, and I'd answered an ad for a skill position and asked me. And soon I found out that I wasn't a neighbor of anybody or a relative, and I started calling Ask Me a front scam for cousins and mob employees. The nepotism is so bad in there, I think Mr. DeWine ought to launch an investigation on the whole deal. They would get. Eventually, I was fired, and Ask Me did not protect me. And they would groom. They put people in Ask Me, and then they groom them for a management position. And it just appalled me of what like I said, I wasn't a neighbor or a relative, and I was drummed out as soon as I started showing my distaste for the union.
What about issue 3? You going to support the Ohio amendment that says the government can't impose health care?
Oh, geez, that's a joke. I'm at a loss for words on that one. So,
but I mean, at a loss because you think it's ridiculous that, of course, you're going to support that, and the federal government shouldn't tell us, or loss because you think it's ridiculous.
The federal government has got too much into our lives right now. They need to stay out of it. So.
All right, just curious what your take is on. I appreciate the call. Thank you so much.
We call ourselves Occupy. Haven't showered in a month, and we love to get high. We're protesting Wall Street, but we don't know why. Singing capitalism must die. Capitalism must die.
All right, quick Wall Street, Occupy Wall Street update. A professor of European Studies at King's College in at London has now commented on the Occupy Wall Street movement. He declared that he is a Marxist. Keep in mind, this is a professor at a college. He has written a book called The Anti-Capitalist Manifesto, and he was asked whether or not this will remain nonviolent, and he said that violence could be avoided if only the 1% accepts the decision of the 99%, which he predicted would never happen. It will remain nonviolent provided the 1% accepts the decisions of the 99%. So he's calling for violence, essentially. And also the Occupy Wall Street group, they had a little bit of trouble. It's getting colder and colder in New York City because Old Man Winter has a strong pimp hand, don't forget. They had some generators. They were gas-powered generators to give them a little bit of heat and also electricity. Well, the FDNY, they took away the generators. They said this is in violation. It is a safety hazard, so we have to take it away. Why would they be willing to use gas-powered generators? They came up with a backup system, which is use those little bicycles, the stationary bikes that you can pedal and generate a small amount of electricity. So they've gone to that now. But why wouldn't these green nuts have gone to that first? Why would you, of all things, it's going to be, they were gasoline powered, which is refined from oil, a fossil fuel? I mean, even if they were so lazy to the point that they didn't want these exercise bikes and they were using solar panels, say, well, at least it's still green. You're lazy, but it's green. They were using fossil fuel burning generators. Shocking. Yes, they are on the little stationary bicycles, just pedaling and pedaling and pedaling in order to get some laptops for or some power for their laptops and phones and TVs and stuff like that. They're going to continue to do this to generate their own electricity. It could take up to 2 hours of uninterrupted pedaling at a pretty good pace to reach 12.5 volts. Estimates say that 6 hours of continuous pedaling would produce about 100 hours of battery use. Huh. All right, my next prediction. They will be doing without electricity. Unless they come up with... Those hippies aren't going to be pedaling to generate electricity. Are you kidding me? This brings up another issue. They've got those big, heavy coats on, sweating in there while pedaling. It's going to get even stinkier. Doc Thompson, 700 WLW. Doc Thompson at 700 WLW. The day after Halloween. Late last week, a resident in California called police to report seeing a strange rotating light in the sky shining down on his house. The man assured emergency dispatchers he was neither crazy nor drunk, but he was concerned about the lights. Concerned that the lights might be, quote, aliens or something. An officer went to the scene to investigate and traced the lights to a car dealership nearby that was using the rotating spotlights for a promotion. The caller, though, got pretty upset, disagreeing with the officer's account of the event, and insisted that the light was not beamed up from the ground, but down from above. Spotlight could also be seen by residents living nearby in other neighborhoods. The police consider the mystery solved, but the man remains skeptical that it might be aliens or something. I bring this up as an illustration of what police officers go through each and every day. These are the types of things, yes, you put your life on the line, and that's something we have to do what we can to protect, to make sure you have the equipment you need. But this is also some of the garbage that they go through each and every day. Numbskulls like this. And they have to take them seriously and fill out the report and go through all of that when you know what they'd like to say is, dude, lay off the crack pipe, okay? That wouldn't you want to say, dude, seriously? I'm showing you, it's right over there. You couldn't figure out that it's coming. It's one of the searchlights from nearby. Well, it might be aliens. It's not aliens. It's the car lot. The guy's selling Hummers or something. Jim and Amelia, you're on 700 WLW.
Hey, Doc, I just wanted to say that it's unfortunate that SB 5 or Issue 2 is the teachers and the firefighters and the cops are in the same group. And they want another school levy. They're voting for another school levy down here in West Claremont. And the fact is that now the teachers are asking for more money and more vacation days, and I have to vote to keep this bill because they keep asking for more money. So what am I supposed to do?
So you have to, wait a minute, explain that again? You're going to vote against the levy.
Right. And I'm going to vote to keep issue SB 5.
So you're going to vote yes on issue 5 is what you're saying?
Right.
Okay. Because you feel like you're nickeled and dimed because of all the levies and everything.
Exactly.
I understand. Listen, this is a big deal, Jim. And, I've talked about education a bunch of times on the air, brought up the idea of, some statewide online resource that we completely revamp education. We downsize the number of schools. We let kids learn at their own pace when they can, offer different classes if they need help. And we moved that direction. The problem is, without an SB 5 for the teachers, we're not going to be able to do that.
Right. And it's, it's just, I just don't think it's right to have the firefighters and cops being in with the teachers, because that's a totally different thing than teachers. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and that's my point. If I want to try to deal with some of the issues at the schools, it's not that I hate teachers. I think teachers ought to be paid well as well. It should be merit-based pay. But we need to downsize the number of them, and we need to get a hold of our schools. We need to downsize the administrators. We need to put this stuff online, revamp education, truly provide the same basic level of education, whether you're in an urban setting, whether you're out in a rural setting, rich district, poor district, that you would have the bare minimum that would be very high quality because you could get everything online. Kids would have access to those computers because most do anyway. We're handing out computers and laptops to kids in different school districts as it is. Put it all online, come up with a system that works, and then offer local classes for those classes where you actually need in-classroom instruction. Have you ever taken a class online? You ever learned one of those programs? I have. Works great for many things. Some things not as much. We would be able to do all of that. Have plenty of money to do it, still cut costs. But in order to do something like that, we're going to have to deal with the teachers' unions. They don't want to give up. And the only way to do that is to strike a deal that says we're going to stop hiring new teachers and let the other ones kind of play it out if we were to make a transition like this. That's not something people want to discuss. It's going to take a lot of reasonable people. We've had some reasonable discussions on the air today. We've had some reasonable callers say, Doc, I just want the equipment I need and, to earn a good living based on what I'm in agreement there. The devil's in the details. How do we get that done? And part of it has to be tearing down these sacred cows. We can't talk about that. We can't discuss this. Otherwise, everybody goes into DEFCON mode, starts throwing out a bunch of garbage, just trying to scare people on either side. We're going to need to deal with some of that. All right, the election's 1 week from today. Have you decided? Have you already voted? There's people out there with early voting already. A couple of quick calls here. Let's go to issue 2. Mike in Harrison, you're on 700 WLW.
Hey, Doc, how are you?
I'm doing fine, sir. How are you?
Good. I'm definitely a no on 2. I'm a Cincinnati fireman. I've been one for 15 years, and your last caller just kind of illustrates the problems with this entire thing. It's throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I don't think you'll find any reasonable individual that doesn't believe some reforms have to be made on some level. But 300 pages for a bill whose marquee issues say that they just want 10% of the pension and 15% of the health care, when 96% of people in public sector unions in the state of Ohio are already doing that. That's one page of a bill. What are the other 299 pages saying?
Oh, I understand it. I really, if this fails, I hope they come back at it and take it occupation by occupation.
Yeah, I mean, it's not fair to lump everybody in, and I can't speak to what a teacher does or to what a police officer does. I only know about my job, and to be honest with you, this thing is just it's made a lot of people stop and reevaluate their political position. I mean, I've never claimed a political party, but I have to admit I've been pretty conservative my entire life. And I got to be honest with you, I'm going to be looking a lot harder at the people that we're putting in office, because I think this was an extreme overreach on the part of the Republican Party to try to gut what they're calling the so-called union thugs, which that terminology being thrown around doesn't make me very happy when they start lumping us in with something that we're not. But
well, let me ask you this, Mike. You can talk to what a cop and what a teacher does, just because you also pay their salaries. You pay into it. You work, and you get to vote on these things in school districts and whatever. So if we were to separate this next time around, if this fails and they say, okay, let's look at school funding and the way we do it. It's already been ruled unconstitutional in the state of Ohio long ago. We still haven't corrected the problem. So here's what we want to do. We want to go ahead and try to strike down collective bargaining of teachers so we can discuss one of the ideas I threw out there of completely revamping education in the state. I know that's not a lot of details, but would you consider it seriously and say, yeah, that's something I may be interested in?
I would consider looking at any issue. I just think that the sweeping generalization that's been made by this bill is just ridiculous. And for the last gentleman who called and said, well, I feel sorry for the firemen, but I put this down because of the teachers. That's just that kind of logic just isn't going to fly, because then at the end of the day, what's going to happen when we don't have the equipment that we need to do the job, and then when our staffing isn't what it's supposed to be? Because I got to be honest with you, right now in the Cincinnati Fire Department, we're almost 100 guys down. There's no overtime to be had, and so to solve that problem, they're taking companies out of service every single day. And the only thing that's keeping us having 4 people on that engine or that ladder truck is our labor management agreement. If you take that away, there's no telling what kind of resources you'll be able to show up, because you're going to let the politicians decide what our staffing should be. Not somebody that's ever gone into a burning building and understands the job, somebody that basically just got elected to impose their will on the people.
You know what we really need to do, Mike? First of all, we need to bring up that word that I bring up all the time, and that is prioritize. That before we start looking at saying, okay, we're going to lay off 40 more firefighters or cops or whatever, let's address some of the issues like statues around town that the old lady Quinlivan wanted to do. The idea of putting money towards a trolley car. All of these different things, we need to say those aren't priorities right now. If we don't have enough money, we need to, again, prioritize. We got to look and say, yes, we need emergency services. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
I wholeheartely agree with you, Doc. I don't think you find any reasonable individual that disagree with that stance.
The key is reasonable, Mike. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate the call. It's Doc Thompson on the big one, 700 WLW. Police in Georgia, they have a tough time right now. They're hunting for a Taco Bell customer who threw a Molotov cocktail at the Taco Bell. He's a little ticked off that he didn't get the meat that he thought he should get inside his Chalupa XL. The XL Chalupas are out there. He ordered a couple of them, got home, and called the manager and said, there's not enough meat in these Chalupas. And he demanded that his order be corrected. The manager explained that she could not accommodate him at that moment because they were now closed. Shortly after that call, the manager said 2 employees noticed the building was on fire as a result of a Molotov cocktail being thrown at it. So the police are searching for that gentleman. The Molotov cocktail. This is America. We don't throw Molotov cocktails. We shoot people. What's going on here? This isn't the Arab Spring. We don't throw Molotov cocktails. We just shoot people. Get it right. Andrew at Dayton, you're on the big one.
Oh, just 2 quick points.
Yes, sir.
One, a lot of cities, including the one where I work, we've already made concessions of 10% towards our retirement, changed our insurance plan to save the city money and whatnot. We've already worked with our city because we know that the city's not bringing in near the money it used to because so much industry is pulled out. And the second point is, by lumping, police officers in with teachers and other public workers, as far as their evaluations are concerned on performance-based, as police officers, we have to answer calls. We can't just ignore them. So the only thing as far as performance-based that's left to us is how many tickets can I write? I need to write as many tickets as I can to be the top guy so I make sure I get my raise. The public is not going to like that.
Well, wait, are you a cop?
Yes, sir.
So you're saying the only way that we would rate your merit is the number of tickets? I think there's all kinds of ways we could rate your merit. I mean, unless you see that's your job, is to write tickets.
That's one part of it, but
see, I think that's part of the problem. I don't see your job as writing tickets. I mean, that's something that happens because people violate the law, but we've moved to that. I would say you could rate on, first of all, physical fitness, number one. There's other criteria that your bosses would use to say, okay, this guy is easy to get along with. He's punctual. There's all kinds of things.
That's true. And just speaking from my own department, almost all of us are. There's not, that's the only perspective from my point as far as performance-based. I know that all departments aren't like that, but
are you a cop in the city of Dayton?
Suburb.
Okay. The reason I asked that, just because I happen to realize you were calling from Dayton, let's look at what they've done in the city of Dayton with regard to the whole race issue. The unions haven't stepped in and said, hey, this is bogus and baloney, and gotten that thing shot down. The fact that they would throw out the test because they said it was biased because not enough minorities were passing it. How come the union didn't come clean on that one and say, okay, we've got this power, use it for something good? They should have stepped up and said, this is crazy. How come it didn't get done that way? Instead, you've got police officers and firefighters that are now getting the job, on the job, when they wouldn't have been able to pass the test. That's how crazy it's gotten. I want the best people out there doing the best job, and we're going to pay them well and take care of them. We're going to give them the equipment. But I can't give you the golden parachute. I can't pay for your retirement where you're going to make, $200,000 a year. There's some out there that make six figures. Sorry. You got to bring it in line with the private sector. Pay well, give you the equipment you need. You take care of your retirement and health care. That's what it's about for me. And let's divide it up and separate it from cops and firefighters, from teachers and people who shuffle papers and, work in an office. It's Doc Thompson on 700 WLW, the home of the best Bengals coverage.
Minutes, let's go!
All righty, that is it, ladies and gentlemen, the end of the Doc Thompson Show. But before we go, as always, let's find out what we learned today. Brought to you by Medifast. Lose up to 20 pounds in the first month. We learned that Parkers in Batavia have been liberated from the crushing oppression of the parking meter. Free at last! Did I oversell that at all? No. We learned from producer James, quote, something about snakes in Florida. Thanks for following along, James. We learned that the Occupy Wall Street movement is about to get even smellier. We learned that if you see rotating lights at your house, your first thought should not be aliens or something. We learned in America that we don't throw Molotov cocktails. We shoot people. Finally, we learned that you can earn $5 per foot in Florida. Have yourself a great day. If you want to relive the show, you can do so in podcast form at 700WLW.com. And don't forget to check out that video on my blog of the 18-foot python and the 76-pound deer. Who do you think won that one? It's Doc Thompson, 700 WLW. Good night, Steve Cannon, wherever you are. On Young. Now, go home.